On this week's episode of the podcast, we dive deep, sharing our thoughts on employee owned companies and how we get the best ideas for our stories. Stay tuned.
Hello, welcome to the Straight Shot Post podcast. Here is your host, Frank De La Arroyo, CEO of Straight Shot Post. I'm the co-host, Grace Nakazawa Santos, Nakazawa being my middle name, which Dale does not believe is my middle name, but it is.
I didn't say that. I just said it's a fake middle name, like it's a last name. It could be your legal middle name, but it's really a second last name.
I mean, it's my mom's maiden name, but they were like, this is your middle name. But I guess it's like kind of like the Latin thing of,
Mhm.
two last names with a dash in between. That's the energy behind it, but legally it's not.
Do you have
Anywho,
four
what?
names then?
No, 3. You have 4 names?
No, but I was curious if you had like another kind of middle name.
No, 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 not at all.
Hmm.
Grace Nakazawa Santos. It's concise, tells you the 3 cultures, and that's it.
Great start.
Yeah, thank you. I think that sets the mood for this week. I mean, actually, we were moody last week. This week I'm not moody. It's just you. But that's okay. That's where we are. So,
I thought I kept it upbeat last week.
yeah, I mean, we started both being like we're moody, and then we put like rainy backgrounds, I think. But yeah, it was upbeat.
It's
But
January, fam,
it's hard, especially I feel
in
like
the
in New
middle of a
York,
recession.
it's so gloomy. I mean, I FaceTime my friend from Mexico and she was in a tank top in the sun, and I was like, wow, that's what the sun looks like. I don't see that.
Every year.
But we get through. Like, it's like I don't know what to look forward to in January. That's what is hard. I always look forward to Christmas, and then after that, I'm like, okay, now what?
You think they should institute a holiday in end of February?
Like an anti-seasonal depression holiday? Yeah, that's actually a really good idea.
That would be yeah, that's a great idea.
I mean, I think there's like President's Day or something in February, right? That people
Yeah, I
take
don't think
off.
businesses do though. Most businesses do, right? That's a school thing.
Really?
Isn't it a
Oh,
school thing?
I don't know. Okay.
Presidents don't give gifts though,
Right. 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 So you want like a gift giving holiday?
or food. No, really, you want a food holiday.
Ah,
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, we could do that. Oh, our producer Heather said Valentine's Day.
That fake made up Hallmark. Yeah.
Whoa. Whoa. There's a reason why, Valentine's Day, my manager at my restaurant asked me if I'm available to work because they're like, we gonna be extra busy. Everyone's
Yeah.
into it. So I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. I have to hand out a rose to every guest. Blech. Anyway, I have yet to celebrate a Valentine's Day, so maybe I'm biased, but maybe it's wonderful. It could be. Actually,
Um,
my dad every year says, "Happy Valentine's, you're my Valentine." So,
that's sweet.
yeah.
That's cute. I have had it's nice. You know, it's like it's not it's a very specific holiday, you know what I mean?
Mhm. Mhm.
If you don't go out with your significant other a lot, it's an excuse to, but
Right.
I actually have to figure something out this year, don't I? Probably.
Ooh, yeah. My
Maybe we'll
oh.
get a rose from Grace on Valentine's Day at a restaurant.
Maybe.
Oh my
Imagine that.
gosh.
Yeah. I gotta learn that new menu. Okay. How was my week? This week was another case of this took me back to when I was doing taxes for the out of state taxes. Where it's like no one really knows what's going on. So basically, at Straight Shot Post, we it used to be Dale and one other gentleman named Brian who owned the company, and Brian is the registered agent. And I don't know if this is for all states, but at least I'm sure it is, but I don't want to say it absolutely. But in New York, you need a registered agent, which is like the appointed person to contact for the company, basically. And that was Brian. But because Brian quit the company, we wanted to be like, hey, state, Brian is no longer a part of the company. Now it's just Dale, and Dale will be the registered agent. And so we submitted a bunch of paperwork for that. And we received 2 letters, one being like, this is a correction letter. You did the certificate of change incorrectly, but you can, refile within 60 days. And then another letter that was a rejection letter being like, you filed your certificate of amendment incorrectly. So we had to reject it. Here is your $90 back. And I was like, what? I don't know what any of this means. And so it was like a week of figuring that out. And whew, I tried to call the Department of State. I couldn't reach them. I've tried for, like I think I tried for 3 weeks, and it's the same, like, really unenthused guy that's, like, the messaging system. I never heard such a bad messaging system. It's like, "You have reached the Department of State. For English, press 9. For Spanish, press 1." And then it's so depressing. And then I went through that, and every time I would go through to the extension I wanted, it's like, "Oh, all the representatives are busy." So I did it 3 weeks in a row, different times, different days, and it didn't work. So I was like, "That's it. I'm calling consecutively until I'm put through." So I just went in over and over and over and over. It took me 13 times until they were finally like, "Connecting you." And then, well, they connected me and then I waited 40 minutes. And then I finally got to a person. And then I asked them, "What's up?" Like I asked, they like pulled up whatever like rejection letter and correction letter I received and they're walking me through it. But ultimately their answer was like, "First of all, you don't need to tell the Department of State that someone left the company." And I was like, "Oh, I didn't know that. Like I thought that was the instruction we were given." So apparently we don't have to report to the Department of State of New York that someone left a LLC. You just have to say who the registered agent is. So like there are 3 boxes to check on the certificate of change being like I appoint so and so as the registered agent, I change the registered agent, or I revoke the registered agent. And so I was asking, I was like, "Well, we have Brian on as the registered agent, but we want to change it to Dale. Do we do like which one do we check? Because apparently we checked the wrong one." And the lady is like, "Oh, I actually don't know. Your lawyer should know that." And I'm like, "Well, our lawyer asked us to ask you, so I don't know what the deal is here." And they're like, "We're not allowed to give legal advice." So then
It's actually not legal. It's like, what? It's not advice.
I
You just wanna
know
know what button to fucking
which
check.
one to check. Yeah. So then they put me through to another person. And that took another like 20 minutes. And then finally they told me which one to check. And then so this is like a whole probably a full day altogether, like a full 8 hours that it took to get to this one conclusion. And then I'm gonna submit this form and through the mail, and it's probably gonna take another like 5 months to file.
So
And
I'm just
then
gonna oh, go
yeah, and
ahead.
then after that, we can finally, like, open a savings account or, like, another bank account or, like, do something with the bank. But until then, we can't.
Yes. So all I'm gonna say, because I'm gonna say, look, without getting political, but for those who like are political, all I'm saying is that if you're somebody who wants more government control, that's that is what you're asking for. You want more of that? Oh my god. I'm just like, why would I want that running my life entirely? Like, thank God that we don't, you know what I mean? Like that there's options for things because we can tell you of all of the different businesses and companies that we have worked with, that business and organization of the government is by far the worst one. Unfortunately, shouldn't be
Yeah.
that way, but I don't even know how it got that way. But my God,
And they tossed me around, like, I went to before I was able to reach them even, I was calling all the different departments being like, "Maybe I'll have some luck there." And I just went down the roster calling different ones, and they're all saying, "Just go to this." They all sent me back to the same place that wasn't answering. And they're like, "Yeah, they're a busy department, so it's hard to reach them." I'm like, "Is that all I get?" So, I mean, I guess the life hack of the week is, like, just call over and over and over until you get what you want.
I don't know if that's a hack.
I life
It
advice.
doesn't.
It's advice.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I would say here's the advice here is be persistent, but by no means is that going to save anybody anytime. Well, what a very fun week you had.
Woo.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're getting it done at the end of the day,
I mean, I
and
also found out about like, well, we started Straight Shot Studios, and I mean, you knew this, but I didn't know that, when you start an LLC, you have to complete the publication requirement, which is like you have to publish about your company in a
a local paper.
local newspaper
How valuable is that?
for 6 consecutive weeks within the first 120 days that you open the company, 1 daily and 1 weekly. And, like, why is that law still in place? There's so many little things that yeah, of course,
I made a
that
money
connect
gesture
money,
for those listening.
money. Yeah, or, like, the biennial fee of, like, "Oh, you have to pay
Yeah,
this, like,
it's
$20 every
just
2 years."
ways to make money. That's it. There's nothing other than money.
So whack.
You don't even know if the publications how much money the it is so weird. There are so many legacy things in place like that. The other thing I guess I'll just state is like, a lot of this is happening because I made mistakes when I started the company. I should have just been the registered agent. I should have been the name on all of the main documents because I was the guarantee, right? And lo and behold, now it's been such a pain in the butt. But we will get there. And by the way, the main reason why it matters, outside of just like, wanting to make sure that the company is sort of owned and registered properly, like for legal reasons. But the real main reason is that I cannot close or like move
Mhm.
bank accounts unless all the parties are there. So I need to then show the bank that I
There are
am
no other
yeah,
parties. Yeah.
correct, exactly, that I am the main owner for me to then make moves.
Mhm.
So that's the real reason why we're kind of being more aggressive about it because we need to move and reallocate funds into different areas.
And
That's
this
what
has
our
been a
plan is.
process that started, like, in July, and, we submitted in July, we finally got word for them in January, and then that it had been incorrect, so we have to do it again.
Right. There's lots of conversation to be had about starting a business with friends, of course.
Oh,
Um,
that's
but
scary.
yeah, I think it's way more of a personality thing than
Yeah,
anything else, if I'm gonna be honest. But because I've never really had I've had some good experiences working with friends, but for the most part, I tend to have, I think, a little too,
intense?
I guess, yeah, of a personality when we're actually doing the work, that it would throw them off. They take it personally.
Mm,
Yeah, and so that's kind of a thing that I realized, like, you need the right partner, you need the right personality fit. I'm not anti starting a company with friends, but I definitely have learned some lessons about it. So, like, in my sense, like, we're still incredibly good friends and everything worked out
mhm.
fine, but now I would know how to handle it. And so what I would say is if you're thinking about doing it, make sure that you're actually thinking about these things and properly designating the right people to the state so that these kinds of things can be a little bit easier to fix as people
Yeah,
move or whatever. So the one person who's like the most guaranteed to stay with the thing, that's the person you want to put down.
and,
It's
I
just
mean, I guess
a headache.
there's something to say about I mean, you're talking about, like, friends, doing company with friends, and a lot of people do it, like, husband I mean, like, whatever, like, married couples do it a lot. We keep watching YouTubers, and they're always like, "Oh, my partner," like, business partner and life partner,
That's
one person.
that's the real life hack is like, yeah,
Find that.
if you can start a business with your significant other, husband or wife,
I don't know how
there's
people
a
do that.
lot of correlations.
Like, I've been talking about well, when I talk about work, like, my dad, like, understands everything because 'cause he's been there because he started his own business. He sells Brazilian meats. Every time I say that, people are like, "Hey, he sells meat. He sells sausage." But he sells Brazilian meats to restaurants. And I'm like, "That's what paid for my college."
So
But,
good.
yeah, he started that business, and, I mean, my mom helped with it. I mean, my mom, when she first moved here I mean, my dad is like the typical immigrant story where he came here with, like, $80 in his pocket and started a business. He at least, I think, somehow got a citizenship. My mom didn't, to this day, doesn't have that, and she was on a green card, and so before she got her green card, she didn't have it, she couldn't work, so she worked for my dad, and then it was, like, by default, joining the company and building it together, but, like, my lord, I don't know how they did it, like, it's a make or break, I think, but if you can make that work, I think it's awesome. Because I mean, I feel like I remember even as a kid seeing the stresses it dawned on both of them
Yeah,
hard.
that's a survival thing, you know what I mean?
Right, right.
That's
She
how
didn't
that's,
choose that, she didn't choose that, yeah. She eventually went on to, like, work at a company, but, like and then he found people to replace her, but yeah.
yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that about your parents, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. My mom is like me, where she was just, like, put down to do the numbers, and then she's like, I don't know what I'm doing," and then ended up, like she's now, like, vice president of a banking company.
So yeah, I mean, I think my week, I don't know. It's been January's been a lot of different tasks in general. I think the biggest lesson from this week was in working to figure out how we want to structure the new company for the long term.
Mm.
There's been a lot of conversations about I want to have an employee. I want to have employee-owned companies. That's one of the things that I want to do, that I believe in. And it sounds simple, but like it's definitely psychologically, I think it's a lot more complicated than I thought for like, and so I'm thinking about it as a long-term thing. It's not a thing right now, but I think that things got a lot more simplified once we were reminded to try to stem any of these kinds of big decisions from the core values. So for simplicity, our core values are, well, one of them is
Simplicity.
simplicity. Yeah. Number one is effort. Effort's the number one core value of the company. Then you have honesty and empathy, which is now transparency and empathy. And then the last one, which is really like the how of it, how to execute on those three core values, is simplicity. So those are the four core values at the company. And so when we were listening to different strategies for how to do it, as far as how to do a long term sort of revenue share structure,
Mm.
a lot of things were being pulled from traditional projects. So we had some research on Broadway shows or independent films or you name it. And what ended up coming out of that were these different types of point structures based on what role you played in it, how much work you did on it, what
And they can
activities are
get
you doing on
super
it.
granular. You
Yes.
gotta, like, track every single thing for every single person, which is specific.
Yes, exactly. And then not many of the things we looked at tackled companies that handled like multiple projects, but and their
Mm.
suggestion was, oh, just do the project to project thing, which again, when you bring it against the core values, then you're saying like, oh, but then someone's that means that we're then putting a hard marker on someone's level of effort. Like because this one did better, you must have worked harder on it, which as we all know, that's not always the
How it
case,
works.
especially with creative work. Yeah. And
Mhm.
so this idea of giving points distributed based on the project or based on the payout of a project or based on the task done on a project ended up creating incentives that I never want, which is like, well, if this is the job that gets the most points on the project, that's the job that I want to go for. Instead of like that's the job that I want or am passionate about. Or the people that are doing the not fun stuff, right?
Like
Get
calling the state.
yes, exactly. Don't get rewarded, which I think is always backwards. Those are the people that should get rewarded the most to help incentivize people to do it, right?
Mm.
So these were all the different kind of permutations of how we could structure it. And then ironically, hearing all of these things ended up making me realize that
Just go by the core values.
and
Like,
keep
what are
it
the
simple.
yeah.
So what we're currently looking at is essentially just like a loyalty based point structure, like a partner. Ironically, it's a creative company that is kind of going to be structured more like a law firm, I guess, if you're thinking about it, right? So
Oh, that's how laws are? Law
yeah,
firms?
you're on the partner track,
Oh, I didn't know that.
you
Okay.
know? So it'll be something kind of like that. So essentially, it's like everybody works at the company, and then there'll be some sort of a yearly structure, which was a good suggestion from our coaches. So basically, let's just assume we're giving away 25% of the profit of the company. It's essentially just going to get divvied up to all of the partners, and that's simply going to be a loyalty program. So you're at the company, and let's say the program kicks in after 2 years, and then essentially after 2 years, you start gaining, I don't know, a quarter of a percent each year or something like that, up into a max of 2% or something like that.
Mhm.
And so basically it incentivizes a few things. One, it says we're going to give you a piece of the pie up front though, like pretty soon, right? So like this is a company where that's going to be a part of it. So after your first year or something, you're going to get something, but as the longer you stay with us, the more you will get as far as the ownership is concerned, right? Of or the revenue share. And it'll be available to everybody. Then all the questions that were surrounding like, well, this person worked more than this person, yada yada yada. Well, I was like,
Mhm.
well, then we still keep a base salary and we keep it hourly like we always have. So if somebody's working more hours, they're getting compensated properly for those hours. but the revenue share is completely separate from all of that, so that they still get the compensation for their time investment if they're putting in more time than others, and yet the company success as a whole is the thing that's sort of evenly distributed, so there's no favorites or anything like that.
But how does it work with, like, say in your contract, it's like you're gonna start by getting like 1%, like a quarter of a
Yeah.
percent, and you build your way up to 5%. But as the company grows and there's more people, what if you hit a number that it's like, oh, no longer can each person get 5% or else that's more than 100,
Yeah,
like
I mean, I think that's
what
exactly that's
happens?
just gotta be split up. I mean, it gets diluted amongst the amount of people, but if the company continues to grow and grow, this is separate from like a bonus though, right? So like bonuses can be distributed different based on however we
Yeah,
decide, but
but still the percentage thing, like, how does that work? Or you don't know?
it's capped. It's got to be capped because the company can't just continue to give away endless amounts of money, right? So it's got to be in my head. It's got to be capped, and then yeah, it gets diluted as more people become partners. But if the company's growing, there should be a
No,
good
but
reason. And also, you're only getting it if you've been there for time. So it's not like you can
yeah,
come in,
but
make quick bucks, and bounce.
yeah, but, like, if everyone is promised 5% and then you get to a
No,
point
I
where,
don't
like,
think.
no
No,
more
it'll.
people can get 5%, like, I guess you
Yeah,
keep
no.
it so
Like I
small that
said,
it
it
never
gets
maxed out?
diluted. It just gets diluted. There will be a max, but it'll be max amongst the partners evenly distributed. If there's only 5 partners and we're giving away 25%, they
I
get
guess so it's like a rewritten contract. I'm like, this is like I'm getting so into the nitty-gritty, but I'm, like, so curious. It's like, do you rewrite the contract every time someone new comes in because it affects you?
it's
So
got I think you
interesting.
put it all up I think you put it all in there in the beginning.
Being like, you're gonna start at this, but it's gonna your percentage will lessen if more people come in, basically.
Yeah, that's
Hmm,
how it would work anyways, right? Like, you're an
okay.
owner of the
Yeah.
like, if I'm the owner, I'm giving up my percentage to
Yeah.
bring somebody else in. So, it's gotta be a buy-in from everybody, but I think
Uh-huh.
it's fair because it's essentially saying, "Well, you could also have nothing," you know? So,
Yeah.
like, it's like, we're doing this because we wanna share in the rewards of everybody's work together.
Mm, mhm.
So I think it's a bit more of a symbolic thing. Obviously, yeah, there'll be money, I hope, but I think it is more symbolic to the fact that we're a company that's a unit. And
Mhm.
again, I think it's a little different if it was more like hardcore commission based. That's a very right where it's like,
Yeah.
no, what you bring in is then that's more competitive where we're saying, which I think we could do that too in certain sales arenas, of course. But that's because you want to it's just again, it's a different value and a different thing. Like if we're saying that effort
Equals how many people you bring in. That's easy to measure.
or that like
Or
that effort is the number one thing, then like
oh,
yeah, then we're saying like, well, if you don't bring the effort, then you wouldn't be here and you won't be here. So, you know what I mean? Theoretically, anyone that's been here that long is
brings
applying
it.
that effort. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't want it to be set up by project at all.
Mm.
It's like if you're benefiting the company, if you're working for the company, then you're working for the company and you're kind of a part owner of that company.
Mhm.
So, I don't think it'll be a problem, but I also don't think we're going to have a culture of people that are greedy, and if they are, then they probably
Right, yeah.
won't be here. Not, and I say the word greedy lightly. I just mean that value financially, you know,
Personal.
that strongly. I guess it's hard for me to put it into words that make sense, but basically, hopefully, people are just fairly compensated. The overtime is fairly compensated, so that this is more of a bonus and a symbolic thing than it is something people are really counting on. And even thinking about it that way made a big difference to me, and I was like, "Okay." Because I do think if we create creative things together, we all made the thing, and it's the kinda thing where it's like, yeah, the PA, from the PA to the lead animator to the vice president, right?
Is there a PA in an animation studio?
Yeah.
That's what do they do? I'm so curious.
Um, well, you gotta
Like, they just bring
think
coffee?
about how many they could start there, yeah. Like, how many little things do you think you do? Like, think about it. You could probably be like, "Yeah, I could use a PA." You should get an intern next
Oh.
semester, like, yeah, there's a million
I
things that
asked
need
for an
assistance.
intern, you're like, "What can an intern do for you?"
Yeah,
And I was like,
I think I
"You're right."
just asked you the same thing. So, I mean, come up with answers and then you get an intern.
Well, you said that you don't feel comfortable having an intern do my tasks.
No, I mean, I don't have not the financial ones, like, you know,
Oh.
but maybe there is like an accountant intern that makes sense for it, right? It's like
Now
it's
yeah,
funny, by the way. A lot of times when you're doing this kind of deep work,
it
sometimes you
becomes
go
so
super,
clear.
super, super deep to come right back to some shit that was right in front of you in the beginning.
Yeah. I feel
And I
like we
just
had a
want to
lot of that
say
this week.
a lot.
Yeah.
I just want to say that no, it's not a waste of time.
Yeah. Totally.
Because the confidence to make the right decision is the most important thing, and that you and making the right decision is the most important thing. So yes, even if you think it's obvious, all the time should be spent there. A lot like how I'm preaching about our current strategies on the internet. Another thing that happened this week, we got approved for the YouTube partner program on our YouTube channel, Spill the Tea.
Hey.
And we started our other YouTube channel, Straight Shot Studios. Like and subscribe, of course, if you're into webtoons, comic, manga, anime. On those channels, I've been, and in our Snapchat work, I've been really trying to change the direction of the company to put all of their efforts towards coming up with good ideas as opposed to like the writing and the editing part of it. And it's such a different mindset shift from where we are. And I can see the struggle for people to like change and especially to something that's more ambiguous, like how do you make a good idea? And I am just pushing so hard for them to just embrace it and go through the fire because that is the most important part. Like it's become more and more apparent to me that so much more time needs to be spent on understanding your audience up front than anything else. Sometimes it's right there in front of you. Like when I say it, it's like, oh, like
Like,
when I say
yeah.
guys, our job is to make videos people want to watch. They're like, oh yes, duh. So that means that all of your attention should go to figuring out what those videos are, not actually like if you had to, the making of the video is not as important as making sure it's the right video to make because if nobody wants to see it, it doesn't matter how much work you put in.
Hmm.
Right. And so when you say it that way, people go, oh, that makes duh, but also it's not most people aren't really thinking that hard about it because most people are coming from the just like the more I want to make this thing because I like it, which is fine. But when you're playing the game at this higher level like we are with like millions of viewers and stuff, I think you have to respect your audience that you've built. So it's very much, which is what they say when you're starting on YouTube, like remember whatever you start with is whatever they're going to connect you with, and you got to lay in that bed, man. But yeah, progress made. Kids book going well. Start to see some animation, some drawings come in. What have you been enjoying in the content creation side of things?
I'd say what's funny is, like, I wasn't really thinking twice about the VO, and I mean, it really does I enjoy doing VO, like, it's exciting, um, and it kinda makes me sad that I can't, like because I've been, like, trained in it, and I'm not doing it, like, the way that I learned to, and, like, I can have so many more methods put in place, but it take a little more time, for more quality, and I feel like right now we're going for speed, so I mean, I'm just, like, winging it. But even still so I'm like, this kinda sucks, but whatever." But even still, like, this morning, I came in and I did not have energy, but I started my morning with, like, knocking out 4 VOs, and I think that, like, pumped me up so much because I was doing it and I was like, "I sound dead, so let me sound not dead." And that inherently pumped me up for the day. So that was fun. And then I guess seeing the also on the kids book side, seeing I'm really not involved, so just seeing the little animations come up and the pages come up every time is exciting, I think. And then I'm not in the reviews that hardcore, but, like, when I pop in, I see a page, I think it's awesome. It's exciting.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, progress. Like things are moving. It just feels
Yeah.
slow.
Yeah.
It's a hurry up and
Really?
wait
Wait,
thing. My
I feel
role.
like it's fast
I'm glad you think that.
in my
Yeah, because for me, it's
perspective.
like my role. It's like I was like heavily involved for a week, and now I'm just waiting.
Yeah,
So it's just like
be made.
hard. Yeah, I
Yeah,
just
but
am
we've
like
been working
waiting
on
and
the
waiting and
next
waiting.
thing, but so that's
Yeah,
fun.
but it's like it's this whole thing is just like this crazy tension around it. And actually, that kind of reminds me of one of the other things we realize about the way we're building studios and why it's been so difficult to sort of figure it out was just that like the way that we're approaching this is very different than most creative endeavors because most of them are like an independent creative, an auteur, something like that. And we realize like the way that we're doing this is very like anti not individualism, but like I just
Like
keep going back
anti-giving
to
credit?
Pixar basically. Yeah, kind of like, most artists care about their credit. And that was the big thing that our coaches were talking about in all these other systems was like,
Yeah, yeah.
that they wanted to be credited for being at this meeting and for having this idea. Whereas what we're trying to build here is like we don't really care where the good ideas come from. Like the kids book is a good example because the kids book is like 100% my idea. The characters I made up 2 years ago, and the concept, the whole thing. But once we actually started making it, I mean, I feel like almost everybody who's worked on it has had an idea that's made it in. Whether it was adding the maps or the visual language, how the dogs look, or the main character and the different styles we could have picked for them. Debates about the earrings and the outfit she wears and what her room should be and what's in the background of the kitchen or the living room. I feel like at some point, everybody who's worked on the project has had something
And do you think is
that's
that not
changed my mind.
normal? Is that not normal? Is it usually like one person makes all the decisions, the people around have no say? 'Cause
Well,
I don't know.
I'll flip this to the project that you are working on that we kind of bring up here.
Oh, Sophie?
You're working on a film.
Yes. I am
You
working
know,
on a film, Sophie's film. Sophie is the girl who entered here. Forgot her
Grace is working on a short film. Okay, and in that film, it's a personal story. And we had a consultation earlier this week, where I did what I do, and we puzzle
It
pieced it.
was it was the most intense puzzle piecing session I've ever seen, and it was done in a public restaurant. And I kept glancing at the girls next to us,
They
I'm
were
like,
definitely looking at.
"Damn."
I could see them
I never
looking at me.
caught them
Yeah,
looking,
yeah, yeah.
but oh god.
I was getting a lot of side eye, and I was just like, man, I'm in the zone right now, though.
Yeah, you were locked in. Oh, I was I felt like I was like I grabbed my popcorn and I was just watching and I was like, because we've discussed it, like how you were gonna tweak the story and we had some suggestions prepared, but when you got in there, like when we were preparing it, I was giving like faux answers, like predicting what Sophie would say about her own script. But when we were in there, Sophie had different answers than what we thought, and you were just coming up with different solutions on the fly. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah,
I was
we gotta.
like,
I wish we could film this stuff
record
sometimes.
it. Yeah, we could have
Um,
done it on Zoom.
but I would say like so. The conversation here is about like authorship and credit, right?
Yeah.
And so if you think about a traditional film like that, somebody's thesis film or whatever at school, it's primarily about that, right? Like this is my story. It's a
Yeah.
personal story.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's where you see a lot of the struggles coming along, obviously. So the problems, and I'll give you guys some context so you can kind of see the kind of work that we're talking about here. So the story is about a young 15-year-old Jewish girl who has a distant mother, and this girl's grandmother is sick in the hospital. Okay, this is her father's mom, and it's Passover, and the mother doesn't want her to go see her grandmother who's dying and presumably like that day, and then that's where
And
you
her
kind of get stuck, right?
dad is also passed. That's
Correct.
another thing, yeah.
Yes, this is what we were given.
That was
And
the
her
yeah.
and so, I go in thinking, okay, so this must be about mourning and conflicts that started because the dad passed, or maybe she doesn't like the grandmother because they're different religions. And then you read it and it's none of that. It's literally the mom doesn't want her to go see the grandma because it's Passover. And then I'm going to remind you the
Yeah.
mom is Catholic.
Yeah.
So, and all of a sudden I was just like, huh? Right? And so
Yeah.
what immediately when I read something like that and I have some context of how old they are and oh it's a thesis blah blah blah, I was like, okay, immediately when you read that and you feel like something's missing, 9 times out of 10 it's because it's related to their real life, right? Because what it says to me is whoever
They
wrote this
have
knows a
context that we
lot
don't.
more.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah.
So the
You
work
know,
immediately go ahead.
sorry, you saying that just I mean, you've said it before, but it just, like, made me realize, I think in the like, these scripts, when I read them and I have these questions, I ask them and I'm like, "Okay, what's the context behind this? Because I don't get it." And then they've given it to me, and then the step I needed to take would be like, "Okay, that didn't read." But every time when they explain it, I'm like, "Oh, okay," because I was like, "I assumed I was dumb for not picking that up." and that it was somehow in there.
Right.
And so, yeah, but that's not the
Yeah,
way to
yeah.
go about it.
No way.
I just
That's
realized.
that just takes training. Of course not. No, the way to go about it is if I'm sitting in the theater, if you need somebody to explain it, it's not there. That's easy. And the moment that start explaining it to you is the moment that you're like, okay, good. Whatever they're saying is the thing that we need to get on the page.
I just wanna say though, like, for me, I feel like I'm just a terrible person at understanding story. Like, story is never my strong suit, so I was always asking, like, I'm watching Wally and I'm asking my mom, like, "Wait, what happened here?" So, that's why I, like, I doubt myself when I'm reading a script, I'm like, "I didn't get it." I'm like, "Maybe it's just me." I don't know. So, anyway,
Yeah, but
like
clarity. Well, again, this is more going to our principles. It's still clarity is king, and then you can I don't know dial it back from there. But until it's clear to well the target audience, so it depends. Like if it, that's the best way to look at it. It depends. It has to be clear enough. Um, Otherwise, they lose you, and then you don't they lost you. So
right,
you
yeah,
didn't like Wally until you understood it, and there
yeah,
you go. But they're hoping, right? Because they can lose you, Grace. They can't lose all the graces though. Right? So
yeah,
that's the idea is saying like, okay, we're going to try to work in these sort of broader percentages to make sure that the for the majority of our target audience is going to get it.
mhm.
And then we kind of got to let it ride, right? Because you can't actually tailor it for each person. Who knows what's going to happen in the future? Imagine that if like the movie could download your brain and make sure that it was the best version of the movie for you. That'd be crazy, right?
Whoa, yeah.
But to go back to this example, what we did in the meeting, which is very difficult to do, but like I basically had to dig into what actually happened in the real world, figure out what the filmmaker actually wanted to say, right? Which boiled down to a story about a girl stepping up to authority, essentially.
Mhm,
And then once you get there, you're like, well, then half of these little things don't matter, as in, like, you can change them so that that story is the one that comes through. And I would say the biggest change that we made was twofold. One, we made the mom Jewish so that we can use the authority of religious uh, authority and power to be a reason to help you empathize and understand where the mom was coming from.
mhm,
And number two, which again I think just kind of really brought it together, is instead of making it the grandmother, because it's very difficult for me to take a leap of faith that the mom would not let her daughter go see her mother-in-law.
grandma, yeah,
In fact, I think she would want to see her mother-in-law, right?
yeah, yeah,
And so you kind of come with a decision. You have one or two options to go in that case. Either A, the mom is just a monster, right?
mhm, mhm,
Or you have to do work to make me understand why she hates the grandmother so much that she would want to rather stop, would want to stop her daughter from seeing her, which again goes against our like simplicity value, core value. So
yeah,
instead I said, well, if this is a story about a mom not understanding her daughter to the point where her daughter then needs to step up to her mother, that authority figure, then let's come up with relationships that is easier for me to understand, but gets the same emotional point across.
mhm.
And that's when the epiphany of, hey, just change it from a grandmother to her nanny opened up every door
So
possible
good.
for the
Yeah,
story.
yeah, and that was like an on the fly solution that really caught me off guard. So good.
Right. But the thing is, again, this is what happens when you're asking the
Mm,
right questions.
right, yeah.
That's really what I think is actually more the problem. I think a lot of people can come up with solutions if they're practicing it,
I guess so, it's
but
a question
diagnosing the
asking that's
problem, I think,
yeah,
is really the hard part, right?
yeah,
So in this case, we diagnose you need to be able to understand the mom's perspective and or at least help the mom wake up to the fact that she doesn't know her daughter. So I think a lot of this really came together by just changing that relationship, because that's a relationship that you inherently, without knowing much, can understand. Okay,
mhm,
she thinks she knows the relationship her daughter has with the nanny, but really she's distant and has no idea.
mhm.
And the daughter then gets to teach the mom something and prove to the mom that you don't know me as well as you think you
Oh,
did.
it's so good,
Yeah,
wait.
exactly, et
I'm just
cetera,
thinking
right?
about it,
So
yeah,
yeah. So that's what I mean. But because the real story for her involved her grandmother, it was very hard for her to not see
yeah,
that thing,
yeah, yeah.
right?
Oh, which is hard, yeah, of
Yeah, very
course,
hard. So yeah, so it was
yeah,
a lot of a lot of hard work to get there, but ultimately now kind of circling back to the studio side of things, even in that example, I hope that she heeds the feedback, and if she makes any of those changes, she still gets all the credit for it. And
Right.
that's fine. I don't care. I just want the movie to be good. I'll take my little special thanks, you know? But when it comes to the studio company, we want to build an environment where we enable that thing, where it is not about you, it is not about me, it is about the story and how can we collectively
Right.
as
Yeah.
a unit with our different perspectives and different skills and different masteries, right? I want to hear the producer's perspective on it. I want to hear the writer's perspective. I want to hear mine. I want to hear about different cultures. I want to
You
hear
said you
about
wanted
different
to hear, like, the
educations.
marketing person's perspective too,
Yes,
which
I
is,
want
like,
all of
awesome.
it.
I think that's so much more of a healthy, environment for creativity 'cause, yeah, no
I
ego in
think
the
so
way.
too. No
Yeah,
way.
it's awesome,
And then the
yeah.
thing is when you then cuz then if you get everybody coming up with like if everybody comes with a great idea to the table and then you collectively decide on the best one, just imagine how much the quality of the ideas themselves are going to go up. You know,
Mhm.
so now as we start working on our pieces, I'm excited. I'm happy to say that there's a little piece of everybody in the kids book that elevates it. Even our editor that we brought on, my friend Kim, cuz guess what? I don't have kids, bro. So
Right,
what
none
did
of
we
us do,
do?
yeah.
I brought in an editor who's an English lit master's, tenured, one of the most loved teachers at her school. She teaches junior high, who has two young children. That's able to literally read the thing with her kid and get active feedback about the kind of questions her kid's asking about it. So it's not, you know, we you want to do that work correctly and sort of dive deep into whatever you're doing, but it doesn't, you know, like her daughter's ideas are going to make it in there, right? It doesn't matter where it comes from. At the end of the day, the goal is to put them through an experience, and that's kind of where my head is stuck. So focused in that arena, and that's kind of what led to how we're going to really structure the company because all I want are great artists to come and work here and enjoy making what the company makes. And I
Mhm.
would say that's the last big thing that we realized was like why Pixar kind of works is because Pixar is not trying to make a million different kinds of movies, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like if you look at the first like 10 Pixar movies, everybody loved working at that company on all of them. So you weren't trying to do Battlestar Galactica at Pixar. You could do a sci-fi movie, but within the Pixar, like everybody liked making the same kind of stuff. And I realize that's probably going to be an important thing here, at least the process of making it. All the stories are going to be varied, but the values behind it, the messaging, the people you're trying to reach, I think a lot of that stays core so that the artists that we bring in stay fulfilled for a long time.
Mhm.
So we'll see how it goes, but I think it was a huge, huge education this week, and I really hope I'm really excited to see how it continues to go.
Studios? All of it, right? I mean,
I mean,
studios,
all of
Sophia's
it, but
movie,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
All
Okay.
right,
Well, cool.
does that cover it for the week?
Yeah. That made me feel like it was a bigger week than just calling the state, which it was.
Yeah, and you were there for a good
I
chunk of that. So
Yeah.
yeah, let's keep all these things in mind as we move forward to the next projects.
Transitioning into I mean, I think we already said the life hack of the week, right? What's the life hack?
Be persistent.
Yeah, 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 that was it. Yeah, be persistent and be efficient in your persistence. I feel like I this is such a small thing, but I feel like it can extrapolate to bigger thing, but, like, when I was calling them, I realized that, like, the path to where I needed to reach was, like, press 9 and then press 1 once like, through the menu, so, like, finding the fastest way to, like, get into position to, like, call 9-1, hang up, call 9-1, hang up, like, most efficient way.
Hey,
So,
that's the way, bro. Any task that's repeated, you know the game.
yeah.
Awesome.
Alright, question game.
Questions?
I'm gonna pull out my cards.
I go.
I
I
don't
go right.
know. I think so. Yeah.
What's your favorite anime? Now that I know that you watched them as a kid,
But you
let me
didn't know
be.
I watched anime as a kid?
No, you don't come in every day being like, bro, let's talk about anime. So I had no idea.
Well, no, but, like, as a Japanese child, yeah, like, anime my mom yeah, my mom showed me Naruto, made me read One Piece to bed, and it was, like, our little tradition when my dad wasn't home, we'd watch it during dinner, like, sneaky, like, we're not allowed to do that, but
That's
That's my
nice.
thing. Yeah. Anyway, dude, speaking of cringy, we were speaking about like cringy romance animes and how
Uh,
you're not a fan. And then I was like, I am. And you're like, what? When I was a kid, I've only watched it once though. Because usually if I really like an anime, I'll watch it twice. But this one called in Japanese, it's Furumu o Sagashite. I think in English it's Finding Full Moon. It is it's like a 90s anime, I think, or I don't know, 2000. And it's about a girl like young girl who has cancer, but she wants to be a singer. And then these like two, I don't know what they're called, Shinigami, two,
demons.
I guess so.
Yes,
Like,
yeah,
but
think
then
of
like the cute ones come and they're like, oh, she's dying and she wants to be a singer. She has like throat cancer and she's like 15, but she wants to get into the singing competition that requires you to be at least 16. So then they transform her into like a 16-year-old and then she goes and does it. And then she's like awesome. It's kind of like Hannah Montana. And then she goes on to have like a singing career, but also she's dying. That was like that was my show. And then I also got the manga after that and I read it in Japanese and I it's I cried I've never cried so much, and I watched that one episode that made me cry over and over. So yeah, that was my
dude.
favorite one.
So worth it. That's
Yeah.
great. I'll actually just say mine just for people who will know this in the future, but it's Evangelion. I'm definitely nothing crazy, but honestly, Evangelion 100% fundamentally changed my life and is the reason why I tell stories, probably, or even thought to do it. So yes, but I grew up with that. It was in the 2000s when the 90s anime was really brought over here by like Toonami and stuff.
Mm,
So like Bebop, Trigun, which I heard they just started up Trigun again, that they rebooted it.
I
And I
don't
heard
know
they
what
brought back Johnny Young Bosch to do the
I don't
voice.
try
You
what
don't
is
know Trigun?
Trigun? No,
That's the one with the blonde haired guy with glasses and a big red trench coat. That ring
no,
a bell?
no.
Wow.
I don't know.
This
I'm
is
not the
hurting my
same
soul.
anime era as you. I feel like I
I
know
guess
all the
so. Yeah,
animes
yeah,
that
yeah.
you don't know, and same for you.
It's Vash the Stampede is the main character, but yeah, you'll see him in cosplay all the time. But my favorite guy is he's got his homeboy. It's the priest who's got this big cross, but inside the cross it's like guns and shit. Or the cross,
Wait.
or it's like the cross is a gun. It's awesome.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, his hair is spiky. Okay.
Word. Yeah, they just rebooted it. Like that, Cowboy Bebop,
Uh,
Ava, Nadesco.
I was Naruto, Bleach, One Piece,
Oh, the long
Kenshin.
serialized ones.
Nah,
Kenshin,
Kenshin.
what up?
Dude,
Samurai
Kenshin.
X, actually, that was another one. Do you ever see the OVA, the 6 episode series that they did, Samurai X? I'm gonna mess you up. If you're a Kenshin fan, this is the best Kenshin
Oof.
story ever.
Okay, I'm ready.
Yeah,
I love that.
it tells you
Okay,
the story of how he became whatever
Kenshin. Maybe
the
I did watch it.
about
I think I did
when he was the
like
demon slayer or
roaming.
whatever in the thing.
Oh wait,
Yeah, yeah, he's like a young kid. He's an assassin. When like it tells the backstory when he
I
was an
think I did
assassin.
watch that. I think I did watch that.
So good.
Oh yeah, and that theme song from Kenshin was a big one for me actually, and that theme song, um, I sang it all the time at karaoke, and it impressed all of the like 60 plus Japanese men. They always like, oh, how does this young one know this song?
Oh,
Um, that was my favorite song.
that's great.
Anyway,
I'm gonna make anime maybe the only exception to questions that we can ask more questions about because it's fun.
okay. I mean, right, like you're if you don't ask what's your favorite anime again, you can, of course, ask another one. If okay, I'm still relying on my cards until I run out of them, but if you had an unexpected day off, what would you do? I don't know if this make it juicy.
It's a little hard for me to have an unexpected day off because I'd be giving it to myself. I guess you're, or something horrible happened that we couldn't work. An unexpected day off,
Should just play video games?
probably
Wow,
because if I'm here.
simple. Hmm. Oh
Now,
yeah.
and to be fair, it depends on like. So I like some games that are kind of competitive. So for example, it depends. Like right now, I'm at D2 in TFT, Teamfight Tactics. Okay, so in that game, I'm almost the highest rank in the game, basically, right? So I'm really into playing it because I'm right there. Once I get that rank, I'm probably not going to play it for like 3 months. So
Mm,
in that case, then it would be a a good show.
a good show.
But usually on a day off now, I'm trying to chill because I conserve all my energy for work.
Mm,
So I don't think I would do anything that would really either emotionally drain me or like get me to bed late or anything like that. I know I sound so lame right now, but
that's the life
genuinely,
hack.
if we're saying it's an unexpected day off, it's gonna be real chill.
Mm,
You know what I'm saying?
I think I agree with that. Like for me, I would do that too. I feel like the only times I've really, really chilled were this past Sunday for some reason because I had no plans, which like never happens. And when I'm sick. I feel like the only times I've
Yeah.
chilled are when I'm
You
sick.
give yourself permission.
It
Yeah.
was that there's like SNL made a video about that being like, "COVID, the new thing, like, t get COVID and get a free week off, like, from your kids." Like, they made the sketch, and I was like, "I relate to that." Like, I kinda sometimes I wanna get sick, so I have an excuse not to do anything. It's kinda messed up, but yeah, so I guess an unexpected day off, just
That's what I
chill
mean. Yeah. Now,
would be nice.
I think a better question might be like, if you're on vacation and you get an extra day.
Oh, but, like, vacation where?
But do you know what I mean? Because, like, that's
Right,
different. It's like if
yeah.
I'm home, that's a question that makes all the difference when you work from home or not, right? Because that's like such a big thing. You're like, oh, I got a day off. Like, oh, no commute, none of this. But like for us,
Right, right. It's
it's like,
just
oh, okay. So I don't turn on the face cam today. I wonder what to do. Like, you're home.
yeah.
It's an interesting thing.
Oh.
So yeah, let's wrap this one up quickly, guys. January 2023, things are starting to happen. Stay tuned to see how they pan out. We thank you so much if you're listening right now. Work hard, be nice, and as always, keep changing. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.